It is now 3:06, and I know we have a number of people joining us, and I appreciate everybody's interest. I want to note that amongst our attendees are Representative Gentile, and in the chat he's noted that there is a supplementary budget before the end of July to close out fiscal year 22. That would be an opportunity for any additional funding needed. Happy to work on that. Representative, thank you and welcome, and thank you for that update. And we'll actually be talking about funding, so that update is very, very timely. So now Mark has joined us. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. We all got on a little late today because of the link, so it's nice. And Mark Smith is here as well. So I'm going to call the
Commissioner. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Like I said, all of us were a little bit late today. So we're going to call the commission meeting to order. I'm going to begin by, this is the Glyphosate Commission meeting of June 17th, 2022. And I'm going to call the attendance to make it official. I am Martin Suberg, the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and Chair of the Commission. And I would like to call the roll and ask them identify themselves. John LeBeau, Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources.
I am present.
Right. Mark Nascarella, Chief Toxicologist, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, representing Commissioner Cook.
Present, Commissioner.
Thank you. Eve Schleuder, Assistant Director of the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, representing Mark Tiesick, Director of Mass Wildlife.
Present.
Thank you. And Julie Richberg, Lead Ecologist, Inland Natural Resources, the Trustees of Reservation.
Present.
Terrific. So we have a full complement and we have a quorum. Our next item of business is the approval of the May 23rd meeting minutes, which I believe were provided to the commission members prior to this meeting. I will make a motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, then we'll go ahead with a vote on approving the minutes of May 23rd, 2022. Commissioner LeBeau.
Aye.
Mark Nascarella.
Aye.
Eve Schleuder.
Aye.
Julie Richberg.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so the minutes are approved. I was wondering, with the leave of the commission members, I was thinking as I was getting ready for the meeting that it might make sense to rearrange the agenda items a little bit. I am proposing to actually move agenda item 5 to the next item, and agenda item 5 is the opportunity for public comment. Since our last meeting, we have received correspondence from several individuals that raise issues involving public participation. And I thought it was important to both acknowledge them. I'm frankly going to read each of the correspondence. None of them are very long. And then invite the group to the commission to think about, and make sure that we are of one mind in terms of how to proceed with the issue of public involvement going forward. As you know, we're at a point moving from phase 1 to phase 2 where a lot of information is going to be coming in, and parties are interested. So with the commission members' leave, I will move agenda item 5 to agenda item 3. And what I propose to do is to just briefly review the correspondence we received. In no particular order, we received correspondence on June 2nd, 2022, from T. Nicholas John, Director of Government and Public Affairs for the Massachusetts Farm Bureau Federation. And I believe all of us were CC'd on the correspondence, but for the benefit of people that either do not have a copy of that or the people attending that right now, the letter says, I write today on behalf of the Farm Bureau and partners to express concern over the operation and structure of the Glyphosate Commission. While well-intentioned, the enabling legislation did not outline any process for public input. As a result, there has been some confusion and growing concern about the way the commission has been moving forward relative to stakeholder input and engagement. How do stakeholders participate? Will there be a public hearing on the draft final report? And the ability of stakeholders to submit pertinent data. With regard to submission of data, we are aware that Ed Stockman of NOFA, and I will be reading a comment from him shortly, sent in information that was distributed to commission members. It seems inappropriate for this to be occurring absent an opportunity for all stakeholders to have that same ability. For example, many of us would like to inform the commission of the recent finding by the European Chemicals Agency, and a link is attached to the correspondence. There are other equally relevant documents that many of us wish to share. My apologies. In conclusion, the ability of stakeholders to share documents with the commission does not seem consistent or constructive. I've attached a list of stakeholders who have an interest in the proceedings of the commission and opportunities to participate, and would greatly appreciate your keeping them apprised going forward. So in this particular letter, there are 4 issues raised. What kind of public process will be involved at the time of the draft final report? Can stakeholders submit additional information? In this case, the Farm Bureau has identified one document already. And can, I guess it's 3 items here, because the third item is, can we get stakeholders added to the list of people who are informed on the proceedings of the commission? So that's the Farm Bureau and the 3 issues raised. And I think the other comments, cover those 3 issues in different ways. And I'll read this one. This is from Bayer. Kimberly O'Brien, Director of Government Affairs from the Bayer Company. I write regarding the Glyphosate Commission scientific review of glyphosate. Bayer is a registrant of glyphosate-based products in the US, Massachusetts, and globally, and supports the Commonwealth's goal of reviewing the potential impacts of glyphosate and glyphosate alternatives on the environment and public health. My understanding is the scientific review of the glyphosate will generate an initial, then final report. The reports will then inform an individual review by MDAR under their authority. I write to inquire how the registering community, stakeholders, and/or user groups may participate in the scientific review phase of the process. Will there be an opportunity to provide information to the scientific review phase and/or provide comment on the initial and final report? Thank you for the opportunity to pose this question regarding the process. Then the third piece of correspondence is from Ed Stockman, and the co-founder of Regeneration Massachusetts. And it says, and it's directed to Ann Lowry. I was CC'd on it. Will the human and environmental health impacts associated with metabolites and impurities of glyphosate be reviewed in phase 2? So these are the comments we've received. And, again, where we're talking about accepting the phase 1 report from our contractor and then moving on to phase 2, I thought it was important for a moment for us to spend a little bit of time talking about process. And the first question is, I guess I'll break it down into these questions. First, if people want to submit additional information for our contractors to take a look at it, for the commissioner to consider in the development of a draft and final report, is that possible? I will say from my standpoint, I think in our early meetings, I believe we've generally set a tone of saying that we want to make sure we're taking into account all relevant information. And so, I want to make sure that we are talking about it now as we have these requests and thinking a little bit about how we might address this going forward. So the question is, we have at least one correspondent that has additional information that the correspondent believes would be relevant to our consideration. And I'll pause here to get the reactions of the commission members. Eve.
Yeah, I agree, Commissioner, that I think it's important to gather additional information in terms of a mechanism. Were you thinking that it would be something that's gathered as this phase 1 report suggests, like contacting stakeholders, having sort of a public input session associated with that?
That is certainly one of the ways we can approach it. As you note, in phase 1, that was an identified avenue, that the contractor would engage with stakeholders and have public process. And we're going to talk about phase 1 in a moment. We're finalizing the acceptance of phase 1, but yes. So, Mark, go ahead.
Well, Commissioner, I would support that as well, consistent with Eve's recommendations. And I think it's consistent with our discussion in March as well, where, I think we had a conversation about stakeholder outreach and ensuring that whatever product of this vendor is used in the individual review by ultimately the committee working under the MDR statutes, which includes, I think, representatives from most of our agencies here, that it has the benefit of stakeholder input into the recommendation from the vendor, which ultimately I think will come out of phase 2, so that it's sort of all packaged and that group that convenes can make a decision, and that the stakeholder outreach process doesn't happen after that, but rather before. So I would also be supportive of what it appears these stakeholders are recommending.
Commissioner,
Yes, John.
MDR would equally be supportive. This effort is not an exact duplicate, but it shares many similarities with the neonic scientific literature review that we conducted. And we did, I was just checking the dates. We had originally scheduled our hearing to be held in person on March 13th, 2020, a day in which those of us working for the states, life's changed. And I think we actually didn't get it back up in virtual format till December. But nonetheless, I think it would be important for anyone interested to be able to provide comment as we're going about our business.
Okay. Well, it seems like there's an agreement and to make sure that we are engaging with stakeholders and gathering information that stakeholders believe bears on this question. So I will ask a second question posed by the Farm Bureau. It's related to that, but I believe Bayer raised this as well. In terms of when there's the draft report after phase 2, will there be an opportunity for public input on that? And again, I believe we contemplated that type of public engagement. And so I'm just seeking, confirmation again that there would be public process. The public has an opportunity to review and comment on the draft final report for the commission's consideration. Julie.
Commissioner, I agree with that. I think it's going to be really important, just like we've shared this phase 1 draft report for comment, that the phase 2 report, which will be even more robust, I am assuming we should make sure that there's plenty of time for review by stakeholders and the public to review that draft.
Thank you, Julie. And Eve, you had your hand up as well.
I was going to say something very similar to what Julie just said. So
Very good. Well, then it seems, hopefully we'll, John, go ahead. John, you're on mute.
Just a couple of thoughts. I don't know if we'd want to speak with the consultant on any ideas they may have, incorporate additional stakeholder input. And it occurs to me, I'm not sure that's in the scope of work, so to speak. So I'm not sure if we're creating new responsibilities for the consultant that weren't identified in their quote. And I should be, I need to clarify an earlier statement. We did have a public hearing, but our public hearing was actually the one you're more or less speaking about now, Commissioner, the one at the end of the process, not in the middle of the process.
Okay, thank you for that, John. And I don't know if any either DEP or DAR staff can speak to the scope of phase 2 to know whether this was contemplated.
I can work on pulling that up, and maybe Taryn can also help with that. We can take a quick scan and see if it's included.
Yeah, phase
Sure,
one did. Yeah, I'm sorry. Phase 1 did include the consultant identifying stakeholders as part of the process and then engaging with them in phase 2, as I recollect. So I do think what's being talked about here would fit broadly into this overall scope. Obviously, if we had a public review process with a response to comments, we didn't really include that in the scope. As I recall, that might be some additional work and effort that would be included.
Okay. All right. So, and so I think with that, I'm going to, I think we've got the sense of the group that some additional process and, Commissioner LeBeau, to your point, making sure that it's fully covered in the scope of phase 2, which should be relatively, relatively easy to ascertain and verify, but that, that would be some direction, to specifically call out an opportunity for public review of the draft in that if it's not already covered. And, obviously if we need to adjust the budget, and we'll talk more about money in a moment, we would need to do that. But it sounds to me like, we recognize the value of ongoing engagement stakeholder during, as well as an opportunity at the completion of the draft before it's finalized and it ends up being used by the commission, DAR and others who will use this information. So I don't know that we have a question here from Kimberly O'Brien that says, so can we provide comments on the current draft? Are you talking about phase 2, Kimberly? If you could put that into the chat, that would be helpful. So you want to comment on phase 1? Okay. All right. Well, I suppose by providing a comment opportunity that may necessitate the need for another meeting after we've obtained additional public comment for phase 1. which, you know, I'm perfectly amenable to doing. So why don't we proceed with that and then move to the next agenda item, which in fact is the discussion of the phase one of the report. So it was posted on our website. And I did want to know if any of our commission members had any comments that they wanted to add to phase one, or anything else they wanted to discuss with respect to phase one. Hearing none, I might, again, you know, in the spirit of public comment, I might open it up to public comment with respect to Julie, before I go to public comment, I'll recognize the commission member. Julie, any comments on phase one?
I did read through the report and had a couple of comments. Some of them being just kind of editorial comments, like they're duplicate words. We probably don't need to get into that kind of a fine detail. I wanted to just have, and maybe have it included in this phase one report, how the consultant is going to address alternatives that are like tank mixes. And when multiple alternatives, or kind of multiple herbicides, are used together to achieve kind of the same outcome as using just glyphosate. So I was just wondering, are they just going to be looking at them as a one-to-one? Or are they going to be looking at how, you know, multiple formulations are used together?
John Wilhelmy, I see you're here. Is there a way, Paul, we can have John speak to that issue?
Yes, let me, we're looking for John Wilhelmy, allowed to talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, thanks for that input, and we are certainly open to considering any feedback that we received today on phase one. And if there are specific mixes and combinations of formulations that we learn are used most commonly, we certainly can consider those. I imagine there might be infinite combinations, but if there are some that really rise to the top in terms of those that are used most frequently, that's certainly within our scope.
Thank you. Can I add another comment?
Yes, the floor is yours.
It's in the document, it says that the EPA docket will be used, and I was wondering, does that, I haven't read through that, of course, how will the consultant choose which select documents will be reviewed? Is there kind of an annotated bibliography that's going to help the consultant narrow down on what material that's within that very large docket will be reviewed?
Yeah, this is a good point. The docket has tens of thousands of entries, if memory serves, and I think we would focus largely on some of the EPA publications there. EPA not only has issued some of its decisions, but they have written some summaries about recent literature that was issued. So there's a handful of these memos that were issued that we would consider, but we cannot consider, and I think we said this in the phase one report, every single entry that's in the EPA docket. It's tens of thousands of entries, a lot of them it's literature, public comments, and so on. But the focus would largely be on the EPA interpretations that factored into their decisions.
Okay.
And I'll just add one last thing. In the list of potential stakeholders, I think towards the end of the document, where is it? Anyway, the trustees of reservations has a new president, so you just need to correct that from being an acting president to our new president.
Okay. We will make sure, that that's corrected. And if there are, let me just pause here and ask if there are other sort of minor typographical corrections. It may be that we can gather those up and we would post those on the website as well. And what would be the best way for people to submit, those kinds of corrections to DEP or DAR staff?
I think submission to myself at my direct email will be fine. I can collect them and share them with ERG and DAR's staff as well as ours, and make sure, share them with the commission as well.
Very good. And I would post them, again, it's just
Absolutely.
part of the comment, we've gotten.
Sure.
Okay. John, you have your hand up.
I just happened to note that Kim O'Brien from Bayer just actually made a comment along these lines in the chat. I don't know if we can just grab that, or if the suggestion is that she put that into an email and send it on to Ann.
Right. So Ann posted her email in the chat for everybody who's participating, and it was my intention, again, in the spirit of public comment, to actually see if there was any public comment from the participants here about phase one. I see Kimberly said she will submit that technical correction to Ann. Paul Locke indicated in the chat that if you do have a comment about phase one, raise your hand and he will do whatever he needs to for you to be able to comment. So we'll take a moment to see if anybody's going to take us up on that offer.
I'm not seeing any virtual hands raised.
Okay. So again, given the discussion we had in the previous agenda item about public comment, we are contemplating moving forward. And when we talk about phase two, we will do that. And we did get a couple of corrections here, including from Kim O'Brien, that we will reflect. So
We do have Kimberly O'Brien has raised her hand.
okay, Kimberly, go ahead.
Hi, am I off mute?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Great, thank you. Kimberly O'Brien with Bayer Crop Science, State Government Affairs. Appreciate the time and dialogue on this today. So as I indicated in the chat, we'll certainly, just things that maybe dates or things that are just could use correction, we'll submit to Ann Lowry, but overall had some observations that wanted to share from our different, technical folks that are very close to this process as submitting studies and registration submissions in the US and globally. So our scientific folks that are really close to this process have made some initial observations on global reviews that are either incomplete in the draft or not consistently mentioned. And so if, to the extent that we could submit, those observations or thinkings around the, sort of completeness of the draft, appreciate that opportunity.
Okay. Commission members, I might propose that we provide until maybe a period of time until June 30 for any additional commission member comments, as well as public comments to be considered, and we schedule another vote in July to both approve, finally approve phase one, and then go on from there. Approve phase one with the input that we've received and a chance to consider it as a commission, consistent with the open meeting law. No, I will assume if there's no comment, it's always dangerous when there's no comment to the chair. That means that we're assuming agreement, and so I'm going to assume agreement here. Okay, so we will keep the public comment on phase one open until June 30th. And we will schedule a meeting in July to formally adopt phase one. Okay. Moving on then to the next agenda item, phase two. And obviously we want to make sure that we have all the input on phase one before we formally adopt phase two. There are a couple of things going on with phase two, and one of them has come up in passing a couple of times. First of all, as we've noted, and Representative Gentile, thank you again for participating, and thank you again for your offer to work with the commission and the administration in terms of identifying resources, because as we know from previous meetings, the work here is proving to be more costly than the $50,000 originally appropriated for this effort. We've spent, I believe we're spending in the ballpark right now with completing phase one, somewhere in the $26,000 to $28,000 range. To do all of phase two, it is, our best estimate, it's about $177,000 to $178,000. Again, we need to recognize that there's a gap here. We think, however, that there is significant value in completing the study, I believe. We're working to arrange funding for the project by utilizing, to keep things moving. Again, Representative, it would be terrific if we're able to use the supplemental funding, but as we've indicated in previous meetings, we are looking to utilize existing funding sources to address this. To use that kind of funding, some of that may need to be carried over into the fiscal year 23, which would require legislative action. We are still working to implement phase two, but the work with the legislature will be important, and we will keep the members of the commission informed, as well as members of the public, and obviously Representative Gentile and members of the legislature. So we are planning on moving ahead using the tools that we have, but certainly any help on funding is welcome. So for phase two, I might ask again, we've and I don't know if the commission members have had a chance to look at phase two, or how you want to structure the discussion with regard to this part. Again, we're looking to identify the funding. Are we seeking comment here on phase two from the commission members and the public, or are we is that planned for an upcoming meeting?
I believe it's planning for upcoming meetings and teeing up the decisions both on funding and scheduling for the completion of phase two. My recollection is that ERG indicated that in its initial schedule, it could complete both phase one and phase two, the entire project, by the end of June, only if it was under contract and able to start earlier than it was able to start.
Right.
So I think the schedule is another item that we might be able to refine, given the current knowledge that we do have about where we are in the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, I don't want to speak for all the commission members. And in a moment, I'm going to give the floor to my colleagues here. But yeah, in other words, that would be a useful data point now in terms of again, the issue about if there's additional process at the drafting of the final report, public input. And then the fact that because of some of the issues we've confronted, we're behind schedule to complete, the original proposal date. Would ERG be able to give us an updated proposal? So that's something that we can talk about. Again, that's one part, the programmatic team. That's also one part of our contracting team to make sure that we're staying on the right side of state procurement law in doing this. And so we will direct staff to work on that. Commission members, any comments, questions? Not hearing any, then I think what we'll do is we'll allow, based on the previous agenda item and this one, we'll allow for additional public comment time on phase 1. And I believe we set the date of June 30. We will set a commission meeting date in July to approve phase 1, and we will attempt to provide certainty about the path forward for phase 2 prior to that. But John, you had your hand up.
Well, Commissioner, I want to go back to the first portion of this particular agenda item, or excuse me, the second one, approval to proceed and funding. Not disagreeing with anything that you said. We share DEP's interest in having this study done. We do see value in it. As the agency that to which the earmark was made, the $50,000 earmark was made, we are among those who are seeking out various potential surpluses or other funding sources, about which I put our CFO into different degrees of uncomfortableness. So we're working diligently on it, and we hope to get there, but acknowledging the representative's written post in the chat, we could certainly use some help.
Right. And I think we're saying the same thing. And this isn't a vote today to adopt phase 2. Again, we have some, the time frames need to be adjusted just given the processing time. We have this question about making sure that phase 2 contemplates some of the public process we anticipated. And, we need to bring all of that back to the commission for approval. So I think we'll have more of that information by the time we next convene in July to hopefully approve phase 1. And it is possible we'll be in a position at that point to have a discussion about approving phase 2. But we recognize that as you noted, we're doing our best to use existing resources. You're noting your resources. We're also proposing some of ours, Commissioner, as you know, to cover the costs in the meantime. But again, any help is welcome. So we will try to make as much progress on that so we can get phase, the stakeholder work that clearly people that are participating in this session want to have underway, and the analytical work that we also want to have underway, but we need to do a little more work on that. Are there any other comments from the commission members? Then if not, I might open it up to public comment another time here, just to make sure that if anybody has anything on the broader topic they want to identify. Paul, seeing anything?
I am not seeing any raised hands. That would be the mechanism.
Okay. So with that, I might then ask the commission members if there's any other business that a commission member would like to raise at this time. Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second. And I'll just say again, for public comment on phase one or commission comments, June 30th is the deadline. We will be back in with another meeting in July. And I appreciate the commission members' ongoing work on this. And I appreciate the many stakeholders that have joined us and are eager to participate and provide their input. So with that, I will take a vote. We'll do this by show of hands, and I'm sure the record can record it appropriately. All in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. All 5 members raised their hand. The vote was unanimous. Thank you very much. And again, have a good day, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bye.
Bye.